All right, well, good evening. We are here together to share with you the Equity Action Plan that is a result of our work in DELT, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. All of these people behind me and some others that are sitting here as well are part of our district equity leadership team, and so we're going to spend some time talking about what we have developed in terms of our Equity Action Plan today. So as we always do, we are going to be starting with our mission and thinking about that this Equity Action Plan very much so relates to creating equity, right? And looking at how are we also cultivating community and empowering our learners, all from that equity lens. So we are very excited today to talk about that. As we look at our objectives for the presentation today, we're going to be reviewing some of the district's historical efforts to mitigate inequities and advance equity. And then we're going to also introduce to you our Equity Action Plan, or EAP, as we will call it today. More acronyms for you. And then we're going to share our next steps. So as we do that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Diaz to share historical.
Thank you very much. I have the honor to give the historical timeline of our work and how we arrived at the creation of the Equity Action Plan. So we'll begin back in 2016, where the District Diversity Committee strengthened and began formatting and forming our future equity work. From then to 2016 to 2018, the committee created the diversity policy, which I think most of you know and you see in the buildings when we go in. We also created a welcome video that featured many of the board members and many District 46 staff. And we took that and our preamble and our policy, and we went to we held an equity event at each of the district schools during a late start. And then we also focused our professional development on just what is equity and inclusion and what does that look like. See? Okay. All right. So then as we moved into the 2018 and 2019 school year, the committee had two main focuses or foci and initiatives. The first one for professional development was an intercultural development inventory that occurred among the administrators. And then for our students, we began shifting to focus on a transgender policy that really encompassed all of our students and our students' needs. In order to support and inform our practices, we learned from the best. We took a lot of Lurie Children's Hospital came in and they gave us one-to-one workshops, and then we continued to kind of strengthen and grow our database, if you will, and our foundation. And then we co-hosted an event with the Grays Lake Library called My Name is Jazz. Great. The 20 and 21 school years were probably the most integral, and they have been basically our backbone and have led us to where we are today. We renewed and recreated our strategic plan, and this is the map and our guiding factors. Before we make any decision, we refer to our strategic plan goals, our mission statement, our values, and then we make the best decision that we can. And as I know most of you know, our mission is included in all of our presentations. And today, as we continue to share this presentation, we hope that you hear that we really do have a focus on equity. We want to connect globally, we want to embrace cultures, and we want to maximize engagement. So continued, as I said, it was a very important year. We continued into the 2021 school year. We made some big changes that you can see and we put them into practice. And we now celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. The district shifted from Read Across America to celebrating a nation of diverse readers, and that happens in the first week in March. We also ensured that all district building libraries have authentic literature that celebrates diversity. And then the district equity's work, we ended up changing the name of the district diversity committee to Equity and Inclusion, which really was came out of our learning and the best needs for our district and for our students. Okay, we're continuing. As we move into 21 and 22, our work in equity led us to create the DELT team, which is the district equity leadership team. Most of us are here. And then we conducted the equity audit, right? And as we also hired a new homeschool liaison who is an interpreter translator, and we solidified our practices and protocol for translations. So all of these outcomes have led us to where we are here tonight in front of you, the presentation of the Equity Action Plan. We continued with our professional development. We have a stronger and very extremely supportive Equity and Inclusion Committee that continuously meets Monday nights once a month, and we've narrowed our focus on understanding the cultural responsiveness. I'm sorry.
So I want to talk a little bit more about just what the Equity Action Plan is. And as we think about this, it is an accountability framework for us in order to really look at what is the work that we need to do. This Equity Action Plan is meant to take 18 months of implementation. However, what we know about it is that we're thinking about the objectives that you're going to see in a few minutes. Those are long-term, and there might be multiple tasks that are within each of those objectives that are short-term. And so the objectives might take longer than we consider when we are starting to implement, and so we'll have to take that into consideration. And I want you to think about objectives as a lofty goal, right? And then what we need to do is complete some tasks along the way. So for example, when you are training for a marathon or running a marathon, your end goal, your lofty goal is that 26.2 miles. When you are preparing for that along the way for several months, you are having some short runs, some long runs, but you're completing some tasks along the way so that you're prepared to run that marathon. So looking at how are we going to meet all of those objectives. As you've heard me talk about at previous board meetings, there are 5 strands as part of this work. And so you're going to learn about each of those strands and what the objectives are within each of those strands from all of these wonderful people behind me. In addition to that, like I said, this is an accountability framework. There are leaders for each of the strands, and those strand leaders are going to be coming together monthly to utilize a progress monitoring tool to see where are we along the way as within implementation, and then continue to meet with our strands as we're doing the work. So you can see, as Stephanie shared, we have many of our members behind us. Not everyone was able to make it, but these are the names of everyone who is our members of our DELT. And we have representation from all of the different buildings, from all different levels, and different disciplines within each of the buildings. And so we felt it was a pretty good representation of the district in order to provide some input as part of this work. So we have, as I shared, we have those 5 strands, and those 5 strands are really looking at systemic equity. And so what you'll hear for each of these strands, again, is you'll hear those objectives, and we'll talk a little bit about what does that monitoring look like. So the first is systems. The second we'll talk about is teaching and learning. The third then is student voice, climate and culture, professional learning, and then family and community agency. And so it's time to learn about strand 1. I'm just going to click that.
Thank you. That's the right place for you. Good evening. The first strand is systems, and that is to ensure systematic and continuous development towards advancing equity within all policies, process, procedures, initiatives, decision-making, and fiscal responsibilities. The members with the strand are myself, Lilia Erb, multilingual interventionist, Dr. Glickman, our superintendent, Mr. Vince Murray, the elementary principal of peer review, and Dr. Wolk, director of HR. The first objective is to establish and communicate CCSD 46 beliefs around the topic of equity through common, consistent messaging shared with all stakeholders. And that is being measured with collecting data regarding methods and frequency of messaging, and that aligns with the Board of Education and CCSD vision and mission statements previously mentioned by Dr. Diaz. And the second objective is to develop strategies to recruit and retrain highly qualified, diverse staff. That is being measured by monitoring recruitment and retention efforts, and that aligns with the Board of Education Policy 510 and 512.
So the second strand is the teaching and learning strand, and it focuses on ensuring equity within all of our curricular resources, assessments, programs, and instructional strategies. The members of the strand are James Goshi, assistant principal at Frederick School, Liz Larkin, a resource teacher at Woodview School, Katie O'Brien, our teacher on special assignment, Kathy Santelli, the principal of Woodview School, and myself.
So the first objective in teaching and learning is 2.1, which is to develop understanding around culturally responsive pedagogy and practices. To help us achieve this objective, we are going to plan on providing consistent definitions of culturally responsive practices to our staff. We are also going to plan on unpacking the Illinois culturally responsive teaching and leading standards, and then work to provide professional learning to staff around those standards. Additionally, we are going to be analyzing disparities in subgroup data on state and local assessments to identify implications for our future work. How this objective will ultimately be measured is to have that district definition of these culturally responsive teaching practices, and then also reviewing our state and local assessment data, looking at the performance of our various student groups. This aligns both to the Illinois culturally responsive teaching and leading standards, as well as the D46 mission, specifically on creating equity, and the curriculum goal in our strategic plan.
Our second objective is to review curriculum, resources, and district assessments for components of equity. And in order to achieve this objective, we plan on working to identify characteristics of a culturally responsive curriculum, create a rubric, provide professional learning for staff around the created rubric, and then eventually have each of our job-alike teams evaluate grade level and content area instructional cycle resources and assessments using the created rubric. And this aligns with the creating equity portion of our mission statement, as well as our strategic plan, curriculum goal 1, and board policy 610.
Okay, so the third strand is student voice, climate, and culture. My name's Linda Mizwicki. I'm the student services coordinator, and I am a strand leader for this. This strand focuses on students' voice and feedback, and on the culture and the climate. Members of our strand were Amy Corey, social science teacher at GMS, Ashley Hennenfeld, social worker at Frederick, Matt Malamed, principal at Park, myself, Mary Murphy, the Dean of Students at GMS, and Yvonne Schmidt, reading specialist and ELA teacher at GMS.
Our first objective is to implement a student advisory committee in each 538 building across the district. It aligns with our district mission and vision statements, and the whole purpose of this particular objective is to give students the opportunity to have their voice heard in a number of different ways. At GMS, we have a model that we're currently continuing to cultivate and grow, and we're hoping to consistently put that model in all the other 538 buildings. At GMS, we have a large group of students, and there's numerous branches that they can be a part of for student advisory. Some kids choose to be on the PBIS student advisory, and they help with the culture and the climate in terms of creating themes for our different assemblies and helping with the school store. Other kids want a different venue, and so they'll come in and they have the opportunity to voice their opinions and concerns about things that they come into contact with every day. And it gives them an arena to discuss those things and then have a hand in creating the solutions for those. So it really gives them that leadership opportunity. And we're hoping to put that in every 538 building throughout the district. Our next objective is to gather data and look through that data in order to find any discrepancies in terms of behavioral referrals. So it'll be collected and organized and then given to the building principals. They can review it and analyze it, and then if they identify any of those things, they will have the opportunity to create solutions to deal with any concerns that arise or inequities that they see within behavioral data that's collected in every building through District 46. And then we have the next strand, which is professional learning.
Hi, so I'm going to talk about the fourth strand, professional learning. The professional learning strand is going to work to build capacity of our systems. So we're working to create knowledge around instructional practices and educational decision-making through an equity lens. The members of our strand are Jennifer Fine, she's a social worker at the Early Childhood Center. Heather Lorenzo, Director of Student Services at the district office. Laura Morgan, the principal at Meadowview. Myself, my name is Leanne Salas, and I'm an instructional coach at Meadowview. And Amy Gluck, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. Our first objective is to develop a shared understanding on topics of equity. So we understand that the Equity and Inclusion Committee in the district have developed these definitions, and they have been shared with the strands. But what we want to gain is a perspective of where our staff is and their understanding of these equity practices. So we will be administering pre and post assessments with the staff of District 46. And this is in alignment with our district equity and diversity preamble beliefs and guiding principles. Our next objective would be to develop a continuum of professional learning on topics of equity. So we'll move beyond the understanding piece of it and start to identify the needs so that we can develop a continuum of professional learning. So we're going to be looking at gathering information through needs assessments in the schools. So this could look like a building walkthrough, focus group, and surveys. And then once we gather this information, we'll be able to analyze it and create a differentiated professional learning plan based on those identified staff needs. And this most closely aligns with our district value of modeling culturally responsive and socially responsible practices for all students. And finally, our last objective would be to implement this professional learning. So after we have developed our continuum of professional learning, we'll start bringing this to our staff. And in order to support them through this professional learning, we'll have our instructional coaches that will be available to support and focus on continuous improvement. And this most closely aligns to the district's strategic goal, which one was to implement this EAP during the 23-24 school year. So, and also aligns to our district equity and diversity preamble.
Good evening. So we come to our final strand, which we're actually so pleased to end with you today, because there's been a lot here today. And we've worked really hard. There's been a lot of deep conversation, and really at the end of the day, it all comes together talking about family and community as agency. We want to make sure that we partner with our families so that we're creating that trust, that strength of community, that strength of culture, and having everybody feel seen. So the members of that strand were Barb Zaris, who is the principal at Avon School, Marcus Smith, principal at GMS, Mary Rosenblum-Avalos, the teacher at Avon, myself, I'm a band director at Park Campus, and then Dr. Stephanie Diaz, who you've already heard today. So the first of two objectives, the first one is to foster a culture of equity in all district buildings. One very effective way to do that in gathering data, you've heard people talk about surveys already throughout our presentation, but one of those is its 5 Essentials season. So we've been able to have 5 Essentials come out, and they're giving us an idea of culture within our buildings, but we are interested in looking at more surveys, having our principals send that out throughout our community so that we're really having more of a lens on the equity across our district as well. And this will align with some of those district strategic goals. We'll be able to review building culture, and then of course the district equity and diversity preamble. And our second objective is establishing consistent communication expectations for all district buildings. One really great way that we want to point out to you guys already is how important we know it is to make sure that all languages are being represented in some way, or that we are recognizing the language need in our district. So we do want to remind you guys that as registration, families are asked what their language needs would be, so that when we're needing to translate, and then that information is gathered and compiled and sent off to the building so that we know what those needs are. But of course, we have more to go beyond that. So we're also looking at being able to have like more consistent format in communication. There's a lot of really good stuff happening in each building, but what does that look like as a lens overall? Also looking at the district website, which you guys have all seen it. It's fantastic. Leslie McLeod, thank you. So yeah, like we should absolutely. And now we just have this beautiful thing that's out there that we can work with our webmaster too, and making sure that information that's coming from different buildings does have that unified look and that unified communication. And this will continue to align with district strategic goals, and it will work in conjunction with the first strand that you heard presented today. To wrap things up, I'm so sorry. What we want to end with you guys, because you heard that there are 5 strands, and we're wrapping it all up. And there was a quote that came up in at least our particular group, knowing that we were going to need to just bring it home. And we want to just leave you with this quote from Pat Waiters. When we listen and celebrate what is both common and different, we become a wiser, more inclusive, and better organization.
So as we conclude today, I cannot end this without, one, thanking this entire committee, and those even who are not here tonight. The amount of time and just brain power that went into creating this plan was amazing. People were really just engaged in the conversations and thinking outside of the box to help us to create this amazing plan that we are presenting to you today. So we are excited to start our implementation and open it up for questions.
I don't have any specific question other than to say thank you for all your work. I mean, you guys put a lot of time and effort into this, and it's appreciated by the board, especially we've been working for a long time on equity and inclusion in our district, since almost pretty much right as soon as I got on, so it's been a while. But just thank you for your work, and I can't wait to see the results start piling in.
Good evening, and thank you, Delt. You all are amazing, and I'd like to give you just a public round of applause because it is truly a labor of love, and you have to truly be committed to and passionate about driving this work forward for it to be sticky and meaningful and have the impact that's necessary to create our one district motto. So I'm so grateful to each and every one of you that supported the plan. My question is around the data capture and measurement. I think I heard in a few of the strands there are plans to conduct surveys to get a pulse on effectiveness. And I'm curious if there's other ways, maybe through focus groups or such, where we can get a sense for effectiveness. Just thinking about, I know in my own personal life, right, we all are suffering from survey fatigue anymore. And so how do we keep a good pulse and make sure that what we're getting is meaningful and not just an output of survey fatigue and rote behavior? Thank you.
Yeah, I do know for some of the strands they were talking about, I know specifically for professional learning, we had talked about focus groups. We had also talked about doing some walkthroughs, just what do we see, creating some checklists of let's look, how are we equitable? What does it look like within our classrooms? And I know some of the other strands have been talking about other ways as well besides surveys. I don't know if anyone else wants to come chat about that.
We will be conducting, we're one, yes. Systems, we're going to be conducting some focus groups with some of our paraprofessionals of color to try and find how we can help support them as they move forward into becoming certified teachers, and what we can help across the district.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So thank you so much for all the many, many months of work that you've put into this committee and all probably the years that came before that where you've been thinking about it and looking for a place to contribute. So thank you. This is kind of a question, kind of a comment, maybe a request. Something that I'm excited about is taking a look at our spaces. I'm hoping you'll look at the outside spaces too. They're rich in gardens and food is such a part of culture, so I'm hoping that'll be part of what you come back with. And want to really thank you for including family and community. It's so consistent with our mission and our vision, and it's a passion of mine too. So thank you for making sure that that was part of your plan. I appreciate that.
I don't have a particular question, but I just want to express an enormous amount of thanks for the work that was done, even before 2016 when the diversity committee came into being. This was a place that my family felt safe for the needs in my family. So, District 46 has always been at the cutting edge of what is really, truly advocacy for everybody. And I think this is just an enormously emotional and incredibly beautiful plan to move forward with. And so the work that you've all put into it is above and beyond anything that I think some of the original members of the committee could have imagined at that point. So I think thanks are going to be in order from now until forever, probably. And so thank you for working on that. And also I'm excited about it because this informs some of my own teaching. And I think, as we all hear different voices, what can I bring back to where I am at? So thank you for all the hard work and the late nights.
I'll echo that without piling on. I was just, I was reviewing our policy in preparation for kind of renewal and just looking at where we started. And that was a big deal. Just that policy was a big deal in 2016. And it was right after my entree to service on the board was through equity when I fired off a memo to the school board about it. And they were like, guess what? Come on over and join us. And the rest is history. So it's near and dear to my heart. But to see that process go from those few paragraphs that were so much work and effort at that time to get there. And I know some of you were on that journey. And then to see this, where we are today, is everything that I had hoped for that we would do when I first fired off that memo. I do have a question for you, and it is, what can the board do for you? What do you need from us to make this plan feel sticky and real and really powerful?
I would say just support, right? Continue to bring questions our way, continue to engage in the conversations, and it's going to help us to move forward.
Awesome.
I do have something to add. Well, of course I do. No, I actually did. It's kind of interesting standing here in this room because before Frederick was built, I could see my childhood backyard, like right out that window. My family's been here since the 80s, and it's been a long journey watching the community grow, and I have the honor of now teaching in it and raising my family here. And as we're saying, hey, come back to us, I just want to say, spread the word. Like, how do we strengthen that community, and how, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what they're trying to do, and in a way helping us gather that data too. I think, Tamika, that your question about surveys was really powerful because, yeah, we're all a little surveyed out, but we could all use a little bit more connection. So being able to even just come up with those ideas too, and keeping people connected, because maybe some people might be just as crazy as me, where they stick around.
I don't have much to add, just thank you for the long years of work, and I look forward to hearing more as you continue, and we all continue this work together. Thanks.
Thank you.